Hi, good afternoon. I think we're live, which is how I always start because I always have this buffering at the beginning. But I hope that you're well this afternoon. This is a follow-on from last week's Parenting in a Pandemic, when we looked at our teens. This is suitable for children and applies to children of all ages. It's looking at behaviour, why our children misbehave, what are the goals of their misbehaviour, and how we can redirect it. So the first thing I would say, as always, is there's lots more information on the Care for the Family website. So if you go there, you will find help and support for parents of every description, whether you're a foster parent, an adopted parent, a parent who has lost a child, a single parent, whatever kind of parent you are, you will find support and help there, and it's an excellent place to go. The things that I'm saying today are all from a variety of courses that Care for the Family organise and that we facilitate at Salway. If you're interested in anything that I say, you're welcome to contact me. You can also look on the website to see if any parenting courses are being run online that would suit you. There's a wide range of them, and from special needs to handling anger in the family, to how to drug-proof your kids, all kinds of things are there. So I recommend you look. More and more facilitators are now moving online, and if you would like us to do something specific, then do contact me at Salway Church, and we will consider what your request is. Bad behaviour or behaviour we don't like, what can we do to modify our children's behaviour? The first thing I would say is that all behaviour is communication. If you think of a baby, babies cry, that's their only method of communication, and that tells you everything that you need to know. They're hungry, they need their nappy changing, they're too cold, they're too hot, they're frustrated, they're bored. Everything is described through their crying. And as children grow up, increasingly they might be more sophisticated, have more ways of communicating with us, but behaviour is still a primary way in which they communicate. So children from toddlerhood upwards, and some people never stop, have tantrums or meltdowns or just lose it from time to time. And that is one kind of behaviour I'm just going to talk about now, and then I'm going to talk about the goals that we might find behind other behaviours for children and especially teens. So looking at the meltdowns first. There are three really strong emotions: anger, grief, and fear. And often we act out our feelings, and our children act out their feelings, these really strong emotions, when we can't process them or describe them in other ways. So an anger or a meltdown or tantrum, an outburst, might be actually an outpouring of something that's more subtle behind it. It might be disappointment, it might be rejection or loneliness, frustration, irritation, stress. Our children might be stressed and it might be coming out as tantrums. They might be not allowed to play with their friends, or their friends are saying, don't contact me. That would cause rejection and will come out as just a tirade or a meltdown. So it's worth taking note. If that is the case with your child, can you identify what it is that they're feeling and why? If they're older, of course, the main thing is to just check in with them, to ask a question. Are you okay? I've noticed you're feeling, or you're not quite yourself recently. try not to put a value judgment on the behaviour. You've not been yourself. Is everything okay? Is everything okay with your friendships? And as always with teenagers, you've got one mouth and two ears, so make sure you listen much more than you talk. And make sure that you stop and make sure that you catch them. You just give them your full attention when you listen. Show them by nodding or that you are listening. Reflect back what they've said to you to make sure you've understood. So that's the first thing, listening, asking questions. The second thing I would say is teenagers often want to talk at the least convenient moment for us. Often when we want to go to bed, go to sleep, but do prioritise them at that moment. If they're willing to talk to you, don't let that golden moment pass by. It's also good to quite often catch a teenager when you're doing something. So what we've said before, when you're in the car, side by side, not actually looking at each other's in the eye, face to face, that's a good moment often to just touch base with a teenager. Doing things like the washing up or something like that, where you're just kind of hanging out, doing things together, engaged in the same task but not looking each other in the eye, is often a good chance to just be able to touch base with them without being heavy about it. Okay, I would also say that if your child, whatever age, is having meltdowns or that is stressful behaviour at the moment, you need to always reassure them that you're here. You are for them, you support them, you love them, you think they're great. Because meltdowns are often a result of feeling threatened in some way, or feeling stressed in some way. Being able to reduce a sense of threat or a sense of stress by reassuring them that you are always for them will be a calming influence. You'll have to feed that in over time, but do let them know. Some children have an additional need, and that is why they might have a meltdown. It might take them longer to process what you're saying to them so that they're ready to move on to something else. If you expect your additional needs child to be able to respond to changing circumstances, for example, we're putting the toys away to have tea, they need to have more warning, more lead-in, more time to adjust to that. So you need to give them, prepare them, you need to tell them how long they're going to be able to play, what will happen next, that you'll warn them this is coming to an end, that you'll tidy up. So many more steps explained and more time for them. Another question that we don't really want to ask ourselves as parents is, am I the problem? Is my children having a meltdown because actually I'm doing something that's causing it, that's triggering it? So a few questions to ask yourself, and one is the same. Am I giving them a warning? Am I telling them what to expect? Or am I just kind of coming in and saying, right, now we're doing this, and they didn't expect it? Are you doing things on a whim? So your child might be happily absorbed playing with their Lego or doing their colouring or doing whatever they're doing, playing their game, and you suddenly say, right, I've just thought we're going to go out for a walk. And that would cause them irritation and frustration if they're right in the middle of something. Quite often as parents, we are servicing our own agenda, and social media doesn't help. When we see other people's families looking so happy and doing such creative things, and you know, having all these, basically they're photo opportunities that they've somehow engineered, but we feel under pressure to be able to do the same. And sometimes we want our children to jump through certain hoops, so we have the photo opportunity that we can put up online because it's helps us to feel better about our own selves, our parenting, and what we're providing. So we need to just watch our motives in asking our children to do certain things. Are we only servicing our own agenda or our own anxiety? Are we, as parents, inconsistent? Are we sometimes very strict and say, right, now we're stopping because we're in bed at 7:30? And sometimes are we very relaxed for no apparent reason? Not because we do things more relaxed at the weekend, we're just feeling strict tonight and or feeling more relaxed tonight. And there's no real rationale behind it. So are you being consistent in your expectations on what you sort of expect each day to look like? Routines really help us so that the children know and we know what happens, kind of about when, for how long it goes on, and then, you know, what it goes on to next. So routines really help. Okay, so I'm just going to have a sip of water. Are we the cause of the meltdown, the thing that's causing stress or irritation? Worth asking and just checking in. Okay, so moving on to goals behind behaviour. We've said all behaviour is communication. With older children and with, not just older children, but with older children and teens, you might find some of these you recognise. I'm going to read a list and just say what the goals are behind each of these behaviours, which we all find so irritating. So excuse my specs. Oh, can't get them behind my ear. Okay, so the first one is power and control. Who is the strongest? They want to know, can I take charge of this situation? By perhaps refusing to do what we ask them to do. Will you tidy your room, please? Will you unload the dishwasher? It's your turn. Will you tidy your toys? And they refuse to do it, and it's more aggravation for us to keep asking. We think it would be less time and energy wasted if I just did it myself. And that is a goal of their behaviour, that they want to get away with not doing it. So we need to make sure that they don't wrestle power and control from us. I recognise that is a struggle we're in as they're trying to find their own identity. Sometimes our children want to get one back on us, revenge. Maybe we've not allowed them to go out with their friends or whatever it is, or made them redo a piece of homeschooling that we're not happy with. They might do something like call us names, be really rude, throw something across the room when they know that that's something we specifically say we shouldn't do in the house. So getting back at us. There is attention seeking, and boredom does cause this, unfortunately. We're all a bit bored in lockdown. So it might be teasing or taunting a younger brother or sister. That drives everybody mad. It could be that your child is just attention seeking for likely to be boredom, or could be for some other reason. Our children are very good at being putting on the pity, making us come and rescue them. So, for example, in normal times might be, oh, I've forgotten my PE kit. Sir's going to be so cross. Oh, Mum, you've got to come and drop it off at school. So that we give in and run round after them, rather than let them take the hit of the consequences of their own thoughtlessness. Approval. Our children need approval, not necessarily from us always, quite often from their peers. So that might cause them to want to dress in a certain way, have certain hairstyles, have a certain phone, wear certain labels, do certain activities because they want to fit in with their particular group. That's great, but of course they can have their own hairstyle and various aspects of image as long as it doesn't impinge on their behaviours and attitudes. And then there's the excitement and thrill that teenagers love. Parties, experimenting with alcohol and things like that. Some unfortunately do things like joyriding or other risky behaviours, climbing over fences when they shouldn't be going into other properties and so on. Risky behaviour. So these are all well, it's not all the things, a range of things that our children and our teens do to and the goals behind their behaviour. How do we sort of stop these things from happening? Well, obviously, the simple thing that works ever so well is not responding to the hooks. They're very good at hooking us into responding to their behaviours. Don't be hooked in. If you recognise any of these, don't be hooked in by it. The things that we ignore tend to lessen. The things that we acknowledge tend to increase. So if you get hooked into all this, for example, attention seeking, we are in our house continually plagued by our youngest, who's 19, who is bored and furloughed, coming and touching and leaning on us and hugging us because he's bored. He needs some attention. He hasn't got enough to do, and it is wearing. And we keep asking him, will you stop it? It would be an interesting experiment for us to try and not respond to that, but to positively input the things we think he is doing well or he is making an effort at. Remind him of the qualities that we admire in him. I love how you're such a generous guy. He is a generous guy. So reinforce the positives. Helps to take away the negatives. That is the simple best thing I can suggest for any of these behaviours, unfortunately. There's no magic bullet. If you think that there are some things that are more problematic in your child's behaviour, then you need to maybe find more help. I'm going to respond. So that's what I would say is if it's more problematical than ordinary teen or child behaviour, go to your GP, contact them, just ask where you might have access to more help. So that's it. Talking with other parents is a really great thing. It really relieves the stress. And in lockdown, we've all sort of got locked into our own household bubbles. It's really good to be able to just have honest conversations with other friends who are going through similar things, I'm sure. And just hearing someone else is struggling with the same issues is half the battle, and it strengthens us to be able to keep on going. So I would encourage you to do that. Do look online at Care for the Family to see if there are any parenting courses there. Because parenting courses are being rolled out online. There are many other parent support groups. I'm sure you have your own little network of support. Do compare notes. That's one of the most helpful things that you can do. And alongside ignoring the bad behaviour, encouraging the good behaviour is, of course, keeping your tribe identity strong at home. Making sure that you spend time together as a family, you do things one-to-one with your teen and your child, and that's going to go a long way. Helping them to have goals, which we talked about last time, is worth just touching again. When they have a goal or whatever it is, we talked about lockdown goals, improving your chess skills, building something, having some ongoing project, maybe working hard to get ahead for next year in schoolwork, whatever it is, if they have goals, they are less likely to struggle with bad behaviour or inappropriate behaviour. Having said that, the pandemic is stretching us all, and we do need to understand that it is just as difficult for our children as it is for us, if not more so. We have one shot at being a teen, and if it's not, if it's if it's now and they feel that they're missing out on things that other teenagers have been able to do, that's really tough. So we do need to understand that and just give them a little bit of extra empathy. Okay, so that's that for this week. Yep, I hope to see you next week.